Alex, my man, good to see you.
Hey, what's going on, Callie? How you been?
I've been doing well. I've been thinking a lot about the old days. You know, we were actually, just before we started recording, talking about high school and some friends we had in high school and stuff like that.
So when you talk about the old days, you're talking about the 70s or the 80s?
I'm really talking about the 80s.
Okay.
90s. The 70s were more of our adolescent days. I'm talking about the days when we could drive places on our own, or maybe we had friends that had cars and we could go places without our parents. It was sort of our coming of age, becoming a little more independent days.
I think you and I met in 1985.
That's right.
41 years ago.
And so you got your driver's license. How old were you when you got yours?
I was 16, which was in 86. I was the last one to get a license.
Oh, I got mine in 86 as well. I think you and I were both young for our grade. Right. So
February,
all our friends,
86.
I was October of 86. So you had your driver's license before me.
You were born in 1970?
69. Oh, so maybe it was 85.
Probably 85, yeah.
Okay. Well, all of that said, you know, the big place when you got your driver's license that you wanted to go was, of course, the mall, right?
Oh, yeah.
Remember, what were some of the malls that you remember frequenting?
Well, we had West Oaks Mall is the one that I was closest to.
Westwood Mall.
Westwood, Sharpstown,
yep. The Galleria.
Sure, the Galleria. You and I spent a lot of time at the Galleria.
We did. We made some movies there.
We did.
We spent some time up in the Transco Tower right by the Galleria.
Kelly would always bring his movie camera to public places. And very kind of David Letterman was big back then, and that kind of gonzo kind of getting people's faces and shove a microphone in their face and the everyday person and ask them a crazy question. And
that's right.
Laugh at unsuspecting people. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that you might recall from the shopping malls is you're walking down, this was generally through the hallways, right? On your way past Sam Goody, or you might be going past Spencer's Gifts. And then there'd be these portraits, these beautiful portraits of beautiful ladies with their hair teased back and lots of makeup.
Oh, yeah.
And they had usually had a boa or satin gloves or something like that on in these pictures. And did that intrigue you? You remember looking at those and going,
Are you talking about Glamour Shots?
Yeah, I am. I am talking about Glamour Shots. This is a dead end, and this is something that used to happen. As a matter of fact, this is our 54th dead end and our 141st episode.
Oh,
if you can believe that.
Happy anniversary.
Well, Glamour Shots was founded by a Texan named Jack Counts Jr. in 1988. So this kind of hit right around the time that we were, I guess, getting out of high school, right?
But hair bands were big, and big hair was big. Hairspray was big,
especially in Texas.
Just doing everything up big. Lots of glam rock was big. Hair bands were big. Just a lot of makeup and a lot of hair was a thing that men and women did.
Yeah, absolutely. And so Glamour Shots, Jack Counts had this idea. Now, Jack Counts had been a business guy. He had actually been involved in retail a lot, and he understood marketing. He understood franchising. He understood malls, shopping malls. That was something that he was involved in before Glamour Shots. And he understood impulse purchase consumer behavior. Now, this is where people go in. Not many people, I think, in their business model were appointment people who came in to get their shot done. They were people like us just hanging out at the mall, just walking around doing our gonzo filming, maybe doing some ice skating, going to catch a movie later. And they were curious. And this was something that was different than a traditional photo studio, right? A traditional photo studio, you made an appointment.
Oh, yeah.
You
Sears.
Yeah, you did your family portrait or you did your school portrait. And you had to go in there and get your pictures done, and then you had to wait for the proofs and go back and look at them.
Like you said, it was always for a reason, a
graduation
or graduation or engagement or something like that. This was just the idea.
Spur of the moment.
Yeah, spur of the moment.
So you'd walk into the studio at the mall, and the other thing that he realized was people when they came into the mall, they were often recreational shopping. And so they were deciding that they were going to treat themselves to something. And what isn't better than a makeover, right? People love a good makeover. So they'd get professional hair and makeup done. They had glamorous props they could use. And then they would take these photos. And the other big thing that Glamour Shots did that was different than traditional studios, they were able to show you proofs immediately. They had some way of developing
it digital?
I don't think it was digital. I think they had like the fast developer, the our photo. They had that in there. They had a little lab in there.
That's a key. You couldn't have done this 10 years earlier.
No. The timing was perfect. So
you couldn't have done it 10 years later.
No, and we're going to talk about what happened 10 years later. So first Glamour Shots opened in Dallas, Texas in 1988. It was in a mall. It was quick. It was transactional. And it was the kind of thing that people, when they came in, weren't expecting to do, but they suddenly did it. And you know what the key to making money was? First of all, the photos were a loss leader. A session was like $10 or $20 to sit down for a photo session. It was the prints. They would try to upsell you on the prints, not prints, 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 because back then there weren't digital photos. So how many prints do you want? Oh, don't you want one for your grandma, for your grand-great? Don't you want one for your mom? Don't you want one for your cousins? And those prints would easily run the average sale up around $120 from a customer.
Wow.
What started as a $19 or $20 sitting would become $120.
Yeah. Would they print them out already and have them ready for you to buy?
I don't think you could get all the prints done right away. You had to come back for those.
Because that's the technique that they use now, is that when we used to get our son's pictures when he was little, we go to like Picture People or something in the mall, and they would print them all out and frame them even. And they'd say, okay, now if you don't want these, we'll just throw these out. And my wife was always like, no, you're not throwing out any pictures of my child.
Right.
And we'd buy the big package with, the $300 package with, 75 pictures of them. Which of course we would never use any of them, but how dare you throw a picture of my kid away? I always thought that was a real sneaky technique that they had, because it cost them nothing to print out.
They had techniques.
Yeah, for sure.
And did the proofs they would show you would also say the word proof on them? Like they had a little thing that would print, so you couldn't even just keep those. They let you keep them, but they were sort of useless because it said proof right across your face.
Sure,
kind of thing. Well, at its peak, you want to take a guess how many Glamour Shot studios there were in the U.S.?
Oh man, let's see.
It's maybe less than you might think. It's a lot, but it's not a whole lot.
There probably had to be, a couple in each state. I'm going to guess 200.
350.
Okay.
350 at its peak. And then Jack Counts Jr., the entrepreneur that started it, he actually got some investors and eventually sold to a company called U.S. Shoe. Now, have you ever heard of U.S. Shoe Corporation?
No, but I love the name.
Well, here's the thing.
Very limiting. You're not supposed to, when you name something, you're not supposed to limit it geographically or by industry, and they violated both of those rules.
Well, this is going to be a callback, because U.S. Shoe owned Foot Quarters and Foot Action, which I think were the precursors to Foot Locker. They owned Tom McCann. That's THOM, like the singer for Radiohead. They owned Kinney Shoes for a while. We've talked about Kinney Shoes, right?
Previous episode, sure.
Yep. But they also owned Lens Crafters. U.S. Shoe owned Lens Crafters. And they bought at kind of the height, this was the early to mid 90s when they owned Glamour Shots. They actually ended up being bought by an Italian company that was a glasses company, like a lens maker, and that Italian company bought them just for Lens Crafters. And when that happened, they quit investing. It became Glamour Shots became something that was not essential to this Italian lens company or glasses company. And so when they quit investing, the company started to lose its financial advantage, right? It didn't have this big advantage. It couldn't support the franchises anymore. You could buy a franchise of Glamour Shots. Could you imagine that? Like for $50,000, Alex, you can own a Glamour Shots in the mall.
Yeah. I mean, that would have been a great idea at the time.
Well, yeah.
Today I could.
If you got in, no, you could, it'd be a lot cheaper today. So,
I mean, I think that's a great business model.
It is. The whole franchise thing actually works pretty well. And the thing that really made them stand out was the fact that they were an icon in the mall. I mean, there was food courts, there were arcades, there was Sam Goody, Radio Shack, all these things that you saw in the mall, along with Glamour Shots. It was something that you just kind of expected to see, and it became part of that 80s and 90s culture.
It must not have been very expensive because everybody did it.
Well, it was $10 to $20 for your session fee, and then the upsell. I mean, if you were just going to do that and buy one or two prints, yeah, you could get out of there for $40. Which this is 1980s money.
150 today or something.
Yeah, something like that. But the small purchases would add up, and they had these selling techniques. But even more so, they had these posing techniques. Now, I don't know if you remember, there was actually a pretty famous pose that everybody would do with their head turned slightly, slight tilt, their hands kind of up close, framing their face.
Oh, yeah.
And the light was just a little bit above them, and it created what they call a butterfly effect. It was like a shadow under their nose that was a butterfly, but it also softened your skin. So you didn't see wrinkles, you didn't see acne as much. And then if they had to, they would actually use a soft filter on the lens that would just really kind of smooth out everybody's skin.
But Barbara Walters effect.
You know what that pose was called?
What?
In the Glamour Shot? It had a name.
Butterfly pose?
It was called the Dallas turn.
Oh.
You're doing the Dallas turn to get your Glamour Shot to look perfect. And it was known nationally. Even the Glamour Shots up in the Northeast called it the Dallas turn. So a few things that were pretty common was, like you said, big teased hair. You mentioned hair bands. You mentioned everybody doing that. Do you remember some of the other props that were really popular back then?
Well, you mentioned a boa.
Yes, the feather boas were a big thing.
Leather jacket,
and cowboy hat. Those were also big because that's what they wanted to get the husbands and the boyfriends in there.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah,
I've never seen a couple's Glamour Shot. Only.
Oh yeah. They did couples shots. They did like professional business headshots. They did revenge photos for people who were getting divorced or breaking up. If you wanted to look really hot and send it to your ex. The other thing that they used was a stool. So they would always have just a regular stool in the studio where sometimes you would put your leg up on it. Sometimes you would kind of lean on the stool. Can you imagine these shots with the stool? These were a little bit wider shots. This was a little bit more of a full body kind of thing.
Okay.
But the stool was a big thing. But back to your point about the leather jacket, a lot of people wanted to look like a rock star. Mm-hmm. So they do leather jackets, they do jean jackets. They even had some sessions where you could go in with your friends and they would not only take your photo, but they would do they had a little template they would put your photo under, and it looked like the cover of Rolling Stone magazine or rock and roll magazine. Yeah. So like, you and I and Brian and Rachel could be, the mad 80s kids that were in this band.
Yeah, I knew they did that kind of stuff like at theme parks. That seemed a little beneath Glamour Shots to me.
Well, this, they had to keep up. They had to keep up. This was,
and then the backgrounds. I remember the backgrounds.
Yes,
much like your studio there, would be all kinds of different colors.
Yep. They'd have some that were the muslin background, which is kind of looks like paint was splattered on it. They had some that were more of a wispy, silky, kind of leather and lace thing. If you were going for that Fleetwood Mac look,
sure,
witchy look. But it kind of turned into a little bit of comedy because at some point people realized it was kind of ridiculous. But the things that really killed it, aside from its overall silliness, was digital cameras and smartphones, right? all of a sudden, instead of having to pay someone to take these photos, you could take a digital photo, and then there were processors that could make your photo look good. You could run it through a filter kind of thing. There was also the decline of shopping malls. Shopping malls started to get less popular, and people weren't going there as often. And all of a sudden now Glamour Shots had fewer walk-in customers. There was also sort of the whole changing trend in beauty and looks. Big hair wasn't as much of a thing in the late 90s and early 2000s.
And grunge just doesn't look good in a
in a glamour shot. It's sort of the opposite, right. the grungy shot. But then there was also competition from, you mentioned earlier, Sears. Well, Walmart also had photo studios. JCPenney had photo studios. These were all photo studios that sort of took a cue from what Glamour Shots was doing and started to make it. If you went to a Walmart, you might see these photos hanging up, and they sort of use the same techniques Glamour Shots was using. You didn't need an appointment. You could walk in. You could get your proofs right away, right? They picked up on all that stuff pretty quickly. So as of today, 2026, there are still how many Glamour Shots? There's still...
Hanging on, huh?
Yeah. There's 2.
Where are they?
There's one in New Jersey. And there's one in Dallas.
Wow.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. El Paso.
Oh, I was going to.
One in it started in Dallas, one in New Jersey, and one in El Paso.
That's awesome. So they're still kicking.
Yeah, they're still called Glamour Shots. They're still kind of got a similar vibe. I think maybe people go there now to be a little bit more ironic. Could
you do it? Is it like retro? Like, could you go and get your hair teased up big? And...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think there's their bread and butter these days, really, is you want to look like you did when you were in high school. And
do they have wigs?
Leather jacket. Oh, I think they have wigs. I think they have all kinds of, the thing is now things, because they can be manufactured so much more cheaply, all these props that would have been sort of difficult or expensive to get back then, now they're just a mouse click away. So people have all kinds of props that they didn't have back in the day.
Mm. Well, I'm glad they're still kicking, even though there's only 2 of them.
Yeah, it's really one of those things where you went in for the session, and then all of a sudden you're on the hook for $200 to buy the large package, because the owners would threaten to throw away, or the proprietor would threaten to throw. You can't throw away that picture. Now you saw the movie Napoleon Dynamite, right?
Of course, yeah.
Now I didn't really remember this, but actually. There was a character, Deb, she had the photos in Napoleon Dynamite that looked like they were taken at Glamour Shots.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, right.
And she would take Glamour Shots too. She was a photographer. So this was supposed to be a kind of joke dissing on Glamour Shots, but it ended up helping with their popularity. At that time.
They had like a resurgence?
A little resurgence, yes. It was sort of, people would ask for the Napoleon Dynamite style photos. They would come in and say that, yeah.
Because that came out in like 2001 or 2000, something like that?
Yeah. I mean, there were still a lot of them going. They were struggling. But they went to be intentionally awkward, right? They were like, how can we make this even more awkward than it would be in real life? And it's nostalgia. It's nostalgia for the 90s, nostalgia for the things we don't have anymore. Kind of what this show is all about.
I love it. I love everything about Glamour Shots. Glad that it happened.
Well, that is Glamour Shots. It was definitely something that used to be pretty popular, barely exists anymore. If you work for Glamour Shots, or if you've ever had a Glamour Shot, drop us a line, not@dirtnapcity.com. And if you want extra, hey, if you send us a Glamour Shot in an email, we will definitely send you a sticker.
Oh, nice. Yeah, let's do that.
All right. Glamour Shots, everybody.